Okay, hi guys. So this video is going to be about the Vernier Sunscreen Lab, which is a cool one because you get a chance to really apply the ozone concept to the environmental science course. So what you'll need is a Vernier Labquest, which is what I have right here, Labquest 2. And then I also have UVA and UVB probes. So you don't necessarily need to have both. You can get by on this lab if you purchase a Go Direct light sensor. That's the kind that connects Bluetooth via Bluetooth to your phone or iPad or whatever the case may be. Besides that, you'll need a couple of sunscreens, preferably at least two. I'm looking at SPF 4 and SPF 15. You'll also need a pen or a pencil, right? The 3x5 note card. Okay. On that note card, you'll also be using either a safety plug or a quarter. I prefer to use the safety plug because it usually tends to be a little bit bigger in size. When you're cutting your circles out, you'll need scissors as well. Okay. And then you'll also need some tape, either any type works. I'm going to be using masking tape, and then you'll also need some cling wrap or saran wrap for this. But it's a pretty simple lab. All you're going to do is set up everything first, and then you'll be able to take that outside. So I'm going to show you the setup first, and then I'll show you the portion where we go outside and take the readings. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. So we have a note card, and what I did was I used that safety plug to make circles in the note card. That note card now has them drawn in, and then the next thing you're going to want to do is use your scissors to poke a hole in the center of them, and then you'll want to cut the circles out. What we're going to do with this lab is we are trying to identify which of our sunblocks holds back the UV rays, UVA and UVB more. Okay, so after I've made my hole, I'm going to cut my circles out. Okay, nice and neat as I can without cutting the whole card. That tends to be a little bit of an issue here, but I'm going to cut the circles out. Okay, and then once that's done, then we're going to wrap it in saran wrap. That's one of the other things you will need for this. Okay, so I've cut my circle and I'm cutting it out. Okay. And with this, we're now able to use that as our cover for where we'll put the sunblock. So that's one circle. If you'll bear with me, I'll cut the other one. And so the purpose is going to be, like I mentioned, to compare the two. And the great thing about this lab is it has many inquiry options and capabilities. So if you're wanting to expand on this, you can talk about with your students the differences between cream and spray sunblocks. You can talk about the differences between brands. You can even talk about the time of day. So if it's too sunny or if it's sunnier during the day or sunnier in the morning, depending on where you're located. That's one way you could do this lab, but it's pretty easy to do. And so now I've got my circle almost cut. I'm trying to make it right where I drew the line so it's equal amount of space, okay, or close to equal, right? And so this can also be done with a quarter, but as you see, the quarter is much smaller. So I like using something a little larger for that. And then you'll need a piece of saran wrap or cling wrap, right? And so I'm going to cut that, and we're going to tape it over those two holes. And then it is important to label the two spaces, one as control and one as test group. Okay. That way you know which one is which, and your students hopefully won't forget which one is which. Because the control group, that's the one that's just going to have the saran wrap. It is not going to have a any bit of the sunblock. So I'm cutting a piece right now, and I'll show you about how big of a piece you want. You don't need to cover the entire note card. You can if you want, but so we'll flip this over. So this is the back, and now you've got the saran wrap on both sides. So it doesn't matter which way you choose to do this. You can put the saran wrap behind the card or in front, whatever works for you, as long as you're consistent with this and how you do it. So I'm going to do it actually on the front so you can see with the lines where all that is going to go. Okay. And I made it big enough, so you want the space to be pretty taut and tight across. And so what we're going to do now is we're just going to tape the edges. You don't have to use clear tape or masking tape or duct tape. It doesn't really matter which kind, as long as your tape does not cover the groups or the locations. Okay? So it's a little close to the edge here, but I'm going to do my best not to cover up the hole. Right? And so now I've got it on there, and I will wrap it around without it covering the hole. And then same thing over here. And I'll just cut that excess tape right now. Okay. And now I've got this pretty well put across. Now I can put another piece of tape on the top and the bottom, and that's fine. So what you're going to do is you'll take your sunblock. So I'm going to be looking at Hawaiian Tropic SPF 4. And then I'm going to be looking at Coppertone Sport, which is SPF 15. And we're going to find out how well each one does. And that's a pretty easy procedure. All you have to do is set your one side with sunscreen, and then one side with your just saran wrap, so no other sunscreen. And what that will do is it will allow you to run out and on a hopefully sunny day. You can do it on a cloudy day because UV rays do come in on those days as well. But sunny days are probably best, especially if you're depending on the SPF factor you're testing. So I'm putting another piece of tape so that things stay on there and don't get loose on me. And in the next portion of the video, I will show you what that looks like outside, and then how you can read that data. So that's a pretty simple setup. I really like it because you can test many different ways on this. And the good thing is you don't necessarily need to have a Vernier Labquest. If you have little tiny UV beads that you can purchase from a home craft store, something like that, then those work well too. So it doesn't really matter which you choose so long as you do that correctly. So this is going to be my test card for SPF 15. So I'm going to write that on my tape, SPF 15. Okay. And so all I'll do is I'll take my bottle of SPF 15 and I will take a small amount. Now you can choose to follow the instructions. Most people do not follow instructions when it comes to sunblock, so it's up to you. But some things I tell my kids is, number one, it shouldn't be globbed on, because that's not what we're testing. We're not testing the fact that it's basically covering things up like a t-shirt. It needs to be spread out evenly. So if that gets a little messy and you have to move it a little bit, that's fine. Okay, I got a paper towel here. And so you want it to be spread evenly across the plastic so that it's blocking the UV ray, not the actual light itself completely. Okay? So now it's pretty well done, and I'm going to wait the 15 or 20 minutes. My bottle says on here that you should wait 20 minutes before heading out to the sun. And this is a broad spectrum UVA and UVB protectant. So that's the hope that we're going to have. And so we're letting this dry. And the next portion of the video, I'll show you how that goes outside. Okay guys, so for this portion, I picked kind of a cloudy day, but it still works pretty well. So I've got both probes plugged into the Labquest. I don't know if you can see it. These screens are not very good in the sun. And I've got my card that we made inside. And so what you're going to do is, it's best to set this in a setting where you will be taking a graph reading. So the UV sensor should be pointed to the sun and up in the sky as close as possible. So I'll put these up like that. And you can do both at the same time. That's another benefit of using the safety plug instead of the quarter, because it makes it a bit bigger. So I'm going to press the play button here. Okay. And now I've got my reading going. And it's reading both at the same time. And I've only got it set for about 20 seconds. And what's good about using the Labquest itself is you can do this setting, run it for the control, and then you can run it for the actual test. So I'm keeping it as is, right? And we're getting averages from this. Okay. So I know if it's not easy to see right here. So we got that, and now what we're going to do is we're going to move it over to the test area, and we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to store that data and then run our test again. So I didn't move the UV probes. I tried to keep it as is, and it's okay if they touch the saran wrap as long as you put the probe on the opposite side. So that's why I like to put the sunblock on the outside and the probes on the underside. So there's no problems there. And then right here, so now we've gathered the data, and you know, just so you can see from the graph, I don't know how well it looks in the sunlight, but you can see there's a marked difference. The blue line is my first test, the red line is my second test with the SPF 15. So I would then do that again with other sunblocks. So I had the SPF 4, I would bring that out and do the same thing. And there's many applications for this, like we mentioned. You can do sunblock types, brands, you can do sprays versus lotions, you can do time of day, you can do you know, different areas in the shade and stuff like that. So it's almost limitless what you can do, and all you really need is this stuff or the Simply Go Direct probe on its own. Okay, so and that'll be it. Thanks. Okay guys, so we took that data outside. Now I want to show you how you can look at it on the Labquest and get a better idea. So obviously that first test was our UVA and UVB, so you can kind of see how that ends up looking. And then what you can do is you can analyze. So we have UVA and UVB being tested here. This is the second run, and you can actually look at the first run. So this was with the sunblock, and so here's run 1 that we're looking at now, right? And so we can actually look at both at the same time and compare what they look like. So these are my runs together, okay? And the lines are a little hard to see in color here, right? But our UVA and UVB for run 1 were up here and right here, okay? And then our UVA and UVB for run 2 are way down there. And then what's cool is you can analyze this with statistics, and you can see, all right, so let's look at our UVB, and we'll analyze with statistics our UVB again, and the other one then. So we can compare the two, all right? So our UVB during run 1 was at about average of 18.8 milliwatts per meter squared, and then our UVB intensity stats we're at about 17.7, so a little bit of a change, okay, not too big. So that was UVB, and then we'll run the analyze and stats for, so we'll take that one off, okay, and we'll take that one off as well. And now we'll run the two A's. So now we'll run the statistics on UVA for the first run and UVB or UVA for the second run. Okay, so our UVA in the first run was 155 milliwatts per meter squared, and then the average was 212, excuse me. And then our UVA run for the second time, our average was 72. So there's a bigger difference there. So you can also compare the sunblocks of and see which one they block better, UVA, UVB, and why that might be a big difference. So lots of applications to this, very, very cool lab. But that's just a way to show you how effective this can be. Like I mentioned earlier, you can do this with the UV beads to see if they change color or have less, but that'll be more of a qualitative data set. So here you have quantities that you can actually compare, and you can do percent change and so on and so forth. So a lot of good applications.